a protest about protecting injured workers' rights to compensation. Roughly, they're just starting to move now. It's very quiet. I got here about 5 minutes ago. They're all standing around. Now they're just starting to move. But they're down at Martin Place. So this is Martin Place, and they're going to go up to. They're going to head up to Parliament House. So yeah, it's quite a quiet procession through the streets at this stage. It looks like it's not far to go anyway from here up to Martin Place, and the cops are all a bit. Not much happening anyway, so let's have a look. There's not even any, there's one MSN mainstream media guy at the front there, filming them as they come along. There's pretty much, there's two MSN, they're just coming here. So here's the stage, so that's it. It's not even going to Parliament House. They're just coming, walking 20 metres down the street, and then they're going to do it from here. So because it's a union one, you know, they cough up a bit of dough, get a bit of staging, a little bit anyway. Should be a very quiet little get together. I think they probably must have barred them from being up in Macquarie Street due to it being midweek. Sorry, it's the 25th or the 26th of May today. They're gathering people into position. I'll get down the front and we'll start filming when the speeches start.
Wales. We really appreciate. I didn't think I needed it, but here we go anyway. We're here today because politicians are meeting this morning to make some very serious decisions about workers' compensation. And we need to let them know that we are standing united in opposition. But before we get started today, I'd like to introduce Russell Honorary from the New South Wales Teachers Federation to acknowledge country.
Yami Yamandi, Naragura, Dura, Gadigal Gull, Nama Yalayidu, Morey, Yalayidu, Yaragiyu, Warga Naraliyidu, Dawarna, Narni, Yaladu, Yaralu. I've just acknowledged country in my father's dialect. He was a strong union member, and before he passed away, one of the last things he said to me was, go finish the work that needs to be done. So here I am today. So hello, I'm Russell Honorary. I am the Aboriginal Education Officer for the New South Wales Teachers Union. My Aboriginal name is Morayan. I'm a Wari Gomeroi man. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands and waterways of the Gadigal people. I pay my respects to their elders. Also, I pay my respects to my elders and to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today, and to all union members and community members as well. Today marks a special day for Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islander people, and a special week. Today is also National Sorry Day. It is held annually and remembers and acknowledges stolen generations, Aboriginal children forcibly removed from families, communities, country, language, culture, and undergoing government policies. Tomorrow also represents another important day. It is 58 years since the 1967 referendum on the counting of Aboriginal people within this country, yet we still weren't allowed to vote then either. So Reconciliation Week this year, Bridging Now to Next, reflects on the connection between past, present and future. Bridging Now to Next urges us to look ahead and continue to put forward and pass lessons and guide us. At the time when Australia faces uncertainty in a reconciliation journey, this seems cause for Australians to step forward. So here we are today. As union members, we cannot allow another setback for our fellow union members, staff, work colleagues or family members. Going in day. Thank you.
People of the Eora Nation, pay my respects to elders past and present. We are here today because the Treasurer wants to cut costs at the expense of injured workers. We are here today for the people who can't be here today because they were injured at work. Budgets are about decisions and they are about people. And Mookie needs to understand that if he makes this decision, that we are so united in opposition that this is just the beginning. But you don't have to hear from me about this. We have a number of wonderful speakers this morning who will tell you a bit about what's happening with workers in their sector. So the first to the stage, I'd like to ask Annette Thorncroft, who is a member of Unions New South Wales Injured Workers Campaign Network, a former teacher fighting for against these reforms. Thank you, Annette.
I want to thank every one of you for being here today. Every injured worker, every supporter, every union. It really means a lot to me. I know what it's like to feel alone. I want you to make some noise. Is there anybody out there who can see me? Is there anybody out there who can hear me? I want to declare now to the Minns government that injured workers are not invisible anymore. That they have a voice of influence that is loud enough to change the direction of legislation. Today, I represent injured workers. I am one of the uncounted injured workers that would still be working at the job they loved if the system hadn't let them down and left them unable to work and not eligible for long-term help. Since 2020, the Injured Workers Campaign Network, enabled by Unions New South Wales, has fought hard to seek reform of a broken system. Our active membership are all volunteers, still fighting serious ongoing health problems as a result of their injuries and treatment within the system. Today, there are 80 members in the New South Wales Parliament across both houses who signed a pledge for reform because we as a group approached about every candidate in every electorate across New South Wales and got them all to sign it before the last election. Chris Minns is not included in that 80. He gave his verbal support at a group meeting prior to the election, but he refused to sign the pledge himself. We built relationships with Daniel Mookie, with Sophie Costas, with Jihad Dib, and they all signed the pledge. Labor then adopted it as Labor policy at the last conference in New South Wales. We lobbied Parliament. We attended meetings with CEOs and executives of iCare, CIRA and the insurers. We held fringe events at the Labor conferences. We have offered advice and gave them horrific witness of our lived experience within the system. This treatment, though horrific, is still allowable by the current legislation that was rewritten in 2012 to fix the system. Statistics tell us it failed in every way to do that, and it has destroyed lives ever since. We put in submissions into upper house inquiries, attended multiple roundtables. We were invited by Safe Work, and we spoke at the World Congress of Health and Safety. All this at great physical and mental cost to those who did it. Today, I honour them all for their commitment to the fight for a different future for injured workers. The government's exposure bill, in the face of all that personal cost, shows we were merely a box to tick so that it just appears like they've listened. It comes as a slap in the face to all workers who should have the right to care after a work injury. These new proposed changes are terrible. They will not make a dent in the major problems of the system. They destroy all the work we have done for positive reform. The money saved will be minimal compared to the massive inefficiencies, manipulation, corruption and medical fraud that are rife within the system and exclude workers from help on purpose. It shows us that our lives are expendable and have no value to the current government. The root problems causing financial crisis are not even being addressed in this reform. The money saved will be every change to the legislation over the years has resulted in a situation where injured workers pay for the actions and the inefficiencies of others. Claim service providers and employers seem to face no negative impacts. Our safety net should be more than undeserved punishment to all workers, and it should not only help the most serious who qualify for ongoing help. Last week, an upper house inquiry was speedily organised because the Treasurer at budget estimates revealed his intention to reform by excluding psychological injuries. He ignored the pledge. Public submissions in response to this suggestion were then removed online before the published deadline, limiting feedback to a few. Treasurer Mookie, in a blatant manipulation, made a statement at the Upper House inquiry last week that if we do not support his reforms, he will no longer top up the Treasury managed funds, threatening that it would lead to the collapse of the whole workers' compensation system himself. He wants these reforms pushed through Parliament next week. He wants them effective to start at the start of the financial year. Now you can tell these changes will have a huge negative impact on all workers. When you just look around here and you see different unions from across New South Wales all speaking out for the same cause. Give yourself a cheer. Are we as a collective going to sit back and let the Minns government do this to workers' compensation? If Mookie gets his way, workers will be forced onto federal welfare and Medicare waiting lists. It's time to break out of indifference, thinking workers' compensation does not matter because it does not affect you personally. If Daniel Mookie gets his way, You might just need it, and it won't be there. Injured workers should not be screwed by the very system supposed to help them. It's time to honour the pledge and fix the mess, or more lives are lost. No worker in New South Wales should be left behind. Every worker who is injured at work should have the right to be able to access timely medical help so that they can recover and get back to work.
You've said it a couple of times here, but I don't think the Treasurer hears you. Can I get a shame, Wookie, shame in your loudest voice? Ready? Shame, Wookie, shame! 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 We'll come back to it, don't worry. Our next speaker is Brad Pigeon, the AMWU State Secretary, who came through floodwater to be here today.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Brothers and sisters, today I stand before you not just as State Secretary of the AMWU, but a voice for every worker across New South Wales. People who dedicate their lives to building our economy and supporting their families. We are here to discuss a matter that weighs heavily on my heart, the recent proposal of psychological workers' compensation reforms. Now let's be clear, our workers are not just cogs in a machine, they are human beings. They bring their skills, their passion, and yes, their struggles into the workplace every day. In the manufacturing sector, where the pressures can be immense, we must prioritise mental health and emotional well-being support alongside physical safety. These reforms, while intended to bring about change, have simply missed the mark. They do not adequately address the reality that many workers face when dealing with psychosocial hazards. Stress, anxiety, and mental health challenges are all too common in our industry. Instead of providing genuine support, this new system introduces barriers that can make it harder for workers to seek help when they desperately need it. Imagine this: a dedicated worker, overwhelmed by the demands of their job, facing mental health struggles in silence because they're afraid of the stigma associated with asking for help. This reform says, if you need assistance, jump through the hoops and face an uphill battle. This is not the kind of environment we want for our workers. We want workplaces that encourage openness, understanding, and more importantly, support. Furthermore, there is a chilling effect that these reforms create. They normalise an idea that mental health struggles aren't legitimate. This fosters a culture of silence where workers feel they must hide their issues rather than address them. We should be breaking down the walls, not building them up higher. Let's also consider the message that this sends to our future workforce. When young people look at our industry, they should see a path that values their mental health as much as their physical health. We need to attract the next generation of skilled workers, and we do that. And we can't do that if they feel that their well-being isn't a priority. These reforms also complicate the claims process for those who do muster the courage to seek help. The requirement for extensive documentation and establishing burdensome evidence requirements can be overwhelming. We are asking for our workers who are already struggling to fight for their rights, right? This is not just unfair, it's counterproductive. Brothers and sisters, it's time to stand up. We must demand reforms that protect workers, not hinder them. We need a system that not only addresses physical injuries, but also acknowledges the importance of mental health support. Let's ensure our workplaces are safe havens, where our workers feel empowered to speak up and to seek help they deserve. Together, let's advocate for a system that puts workers' mental health first, a system that truly recognises the complexities of what they face in their day-to-day lives. Let's build on an environment that supports, uplifts and fights for our workers. Thank you, and let's continue to fight for our justice and fairness in the workplace. Thank you.
Brad, make no mistake, injured workers will pay for these cuts, and that is what this government is saying to workers today. And acutely that is felt in health and education, frontline workers who are incredibly stressed by the nature of their work. I'd like to call now to the stage Amber Flohm, the Deputy President of the New South Wales Teachers Federation.
Thanks, colleagues, comrades. There is no doubt that health and education are disproportionately affected by these changes, that being the two biggest industries with the largest number of psychological injuries. The fact that those two industries have 80% of their workers who are women is shameful for the Treasurer to target women in this way. The situation before us today is clear. We either support the Treasurer and throwing injured workers on the scrap heap to their families to care for, onto social services that are already overburdened by demand, or we stand up against these cuts. Because the fact is that the financial burden is being shifted from Treasury to the injured worker. The evidence is in. There was an inquiry report last Friday. There are over 486 pieces of evidence. 480 of them support the position of unions in this state. We know that when you increase the whole of person injury from 15% to 31%, you effectively shut down psychological injury claims for workers in this state. Shame indeed. Doctors, mental health experts, lawyers and unions are standing united against these cuts, because the fact remains workers and essential workers and all workers in New South Wales deserve more than health that is determined by a spreadsheet. Instead of focusing on preventing injuries, Treasury is focusing on preventing claims, and we cannot accept that. In education, we have made great progress over the last couple of years, but you can absolutely forget that progress, where the nature of their work, high workloads, high levels of burnout, bullying, harassment, including sexual harassment, the exposure to traumatic experiences and events is way too commonplace. It will do nothing, not only for those individual injured workers, but for the teaching profession overall. Thank you, comrades. Shame, Mookie, shame.
Shame, Mookie, shame. Shame, Mookie, shame. Shame, Mookie, shame. Shame, Mookie, shame. Shame, Mookie, shame. Shame, Mookie, shame. Shame,
Thank you.
Mookie, shame.
Thank you, Amber. I now call to the stage Michael Whaites, who's the New South Wales Nurses and Midwives Association Assistant Secretary.
In 2023, our union handed up a report to New South Wales Health that showed that 15% of nurses were suffering from PTSD as a result of workloads and the COVID impact. Many, many more suffering burnout. And what did they do with that report? They dismissed it. They dismissed it out of hand. Shame on them. Since that time, hospitals have only gotten busier. Hospitals have only gotten more full of acutely sick people. Nurses and midwives, day in, day out, have to make decisions about who they attend care for and who they don't. This is the legacy of the former government who suppressed our wages for over 10 years. But what Mookie is doing is digging down and making sure that that suppression still remains and will remain into the future. And he's doing that by denying nurses and midwives wage justice. The very thing that will put more nurses and midwives at the bedside, caring for you, caring for your relatives and caring for the community. And yet when he knows that there is a system of work in New South Wales Health that is injuring nurses and midwives day in, day out. And rather than improve the situation, what does he do? He takes nurses and midwives and says, we don't value you. That's why we won't give you a pay rise. We don't value you. And when you get injured, we don't care. We don't care. That's what the Treasurer is saying. Shame on him. We speak today for nurse unit managers who were injured during COVID because of the workload that was represented to her. A nurse unit manager that will never work a day in her life again on a public hospital ward, such is her psychological injury. And her injury rating is 21%. 21%. This is the very individual that Daniel Mookie wants to cast off into the Detritus of society. We have nurses today working in the state's neonatal intensive care units, 10 staff short, meaning those little babies in those humidity cribs that should be getting 1-to-1 care are getting 1-to-2 care. Shame on them. This is the very type of injury that Daniel Mookie's draft legislation said could not be compensated under his bright, brave new world. Well, we reject that world, Daniel Mookie. We reject that world. We will stand and fight for workers' compensation, maintaining the injury rate at 15%, not your abhorrent 30%. And I want to end on this note. What kind of Labor government puts up a draft piece of legislation that says that people who are facing sexual harassment at work have to prove that in court before they can access compensation? It is an act of abhorrence and we will not stand for it, which is why we stand here today and fight, and we will continue to fight until that 30% WPI is withdrawn. Shame on you, Mookie, shame.
Forget that this New South Wales government is also an employer, and what they are doing to teachers, nurses, healthcare workers, all of those government employees is saying, we will not stand by you when our own systems fail you. That is what they're saying. And as the biggest employer in this state, what they also do is set the tone for the private sector. And no one is closer to the coalface than those workers in finance who have to sit there and deal with the greedy side of corporate. So on that, I welcome to the stage Julia Angrisano, the National Secretary of the Finance Sector Union.
Comrades, I've seen media reports from last week speculating that one of our biggest private sector employers in New South Wales, Westpac, is preparing to cut another 1,500 jobs. If those job cuts go through, it'll be on top of the already 1,000 jobs cut in the last 12 months, just at Westpac alone. But I can tell you this, friends, that these job cuts are not because work is no longer required to be performed. That's not the case. The work is still there. It's just expected that those left behind do more with less. We all know that the finance industry is a highly profitable industry, with many employers raking in billions of dollars in profits each year. Westpac alone reported an almost $7 billion in profit last year. But for finance and insurance employers, billions in profits are not enough. They demand more. They demand that workers work more hours, additional hours of work, mostly unpaid in our industry. That's normal. A finance worker said this: "I was already working a 10-hour day when I couldn't fit in the extra demands or reacted badly under the stress, so they put me on management performance." They demand that workers do more with less, where workloads and targets are unreasonable and impossible to achieve. A bank worker said, "I've been diagnosed with severe depression, and this has been caused by the constant stress and pressures of management demanding more from us no matter what." Or the worker that said, "Staff are under impossible workload expectations, to the point where thousands of us have experienced elevated levels of stress, leading to mental health issues due to the impossible demands. It is outrageous to think that under the proposed changes, bank bosses who are enabling these practices and a culture of do more with less, which we know is causing mental health injuries, will be given a green light to continue with those practices, sending a very wrong signal to employers just like Westpac that your actions are acceptable. Keep prioritising profits over worker safety." Well, you know what? Today, we're sending a very clear and loud signal to the New South Wales Labor government that mental health impacts on work of finance workers is real, and it deserves support, it deserves care within the workers' compensation system. Today, we're demanding a leading workers' compensation system that genuinely keeps us all safe. Thank you, comrades.
Up every morning in the hope that they come home in the afternoon or in the morning the next day to their families okay and safe. But sometimes just the very nature of work means that that is not possible. Sometimes the environment you work in does not allow that. And sometimes the people you work with can't help that either. So there's some really sad, awful stories that come out of retail recently that can't be avoided. But a system that is broken for those workers means that they will not be supported the next time they wake up in the morning. So on that, I'll ask Bernie Smith from the SDA to speak.
Thanks, Lauren. Industry is an industry under pressure. Our members, like Anne and Chris I see before me today, face everyday customer abuse and violence, public acts of aggression and unreasonable workloads and pressures. Just 3 short weeks ago, we all voted for a political mantra. No one held back, nobody left behind. Well, if the windows are open, Daniel, you're leaving plenty of people behind with these laws. You're leaving behind Wayne, a bloke I've known for 15 to 20 years. I used to call him happy-go-lucky. Now I call him heavily medicated. Unreasonable workload has broken Wayne over months and months and months. Sarah would not be compensated under these new laws after walking past a body that plummeted 5 levels at a Westfield shopping centre outside her shop because she didn't see the fall, she just saw the aftermath. She's left behind. It's shameful. Our members at Bondi Junction would not be compensable under these laws despite the extreme stress that they faced in their workplaces. This is not right. This is not what we voted for federally. This is not what we voted for at the state level. We voted so that everybody could get ahead, not just the actuaries. We voted that nobody would be left behind, not any of our injured members. There is a way through this, but it's a 2-step dance, not a blunt force. And that is, let's legislate the preventative measures that will stop these injuries, and then let's review the system properly for a proper outcome. Because in WHS, prevention is the cure, not throwing people on the scrap heap. Let's get this done.
Prevent injuries, not preventing claims. I think, Amber, you said it best. I now call to the stage Troy Wright, who's the PSA Assistant Secretary.
Jeez. Our heights are different.
Comrades, like every other union represented here today, our union has a serious concern that this is a bill that will do nothing to prevent a worker from being injured, but do everything to prevent a worker receiving compensation for that injury. It is a big bill. There is a lot of detail to it, and I just want to concentrate and bring to this audience's attention one small element of this bill that will have a disastrous effect on thousands of workers. The bill seeks to introduce a definition of psychological injury, and within that definition it prescribes vicarious trauma as a psychological injury. Everyone probably knows what vicarious trauma is. It's when you experience and witness the trauma of other people, not directly yourself, but that builds and builds and builds. But what this bill does is get really smart and introduce its own definition of vicarious trauma that excludes everyone that experiences vicarious trauma. It says the person seeking compensation has to have a real and substantial connection to the person who has the trauma. That's not vicarious trauma. That's not what it is. Our members, and I'll give you a really solid example. We had a member who sat on the domestic violence helpline, a service provided by government, by this government, to people in the community that are experiencing domestic violence. She receives calls day after day, week after week, month after month, from women who are escaping serious domestic violence, from women who are desperate. And eventually, after 5 years, there's one call that breaks her, one call that reduces her to tears, that makes her not able to face work. She did not have a real and substantial connection with that one caller. She had vicarious trauma from exposure to hundreds, if not thousands of calls. She would not be eligible for workers' compensation if this bill is passed in its current form. And we will not let it pass in its current form, and we will call for changes because workers' compensation is there for workers. This bill makes it there for lawyers. Shame, Mookie, shame!
Shame, Mookie, shame! Shame, Mookie, shame! Shame, Mookie, shame! Shame, Mookie, shame! Shame, Mookie, shame!
When workers vote in Labor governments, it's with an expectation that they will deliver on their promise to us to keep us safe, to respect our work. This government is already letting us down. It is letting down workers who support some of the most vulnerable in our community, those who work in the community and disability sector. And I call on now Angus McFarland, who's the Secretary of the New South Wales Australian Services Union.
We are here gathered as the mighty New South Wales union movement because together we say no to cuts to mental health supports for workers in need. Now, the ASU represents workers in community and disability services, transport, water and aviation, and all we can see from this proposal of the government is workers being left behind. This legislation puts lawyers in charge of mental health instead of doctors and medical specialists. Yes, that's right, the doctors are out and the lawyers are in. Hurdles are being put up left, right and centre to stop workers in need being able to get the supports that they need. Hurdle number one, if you have a mental health claim, you will now have to go to court rather than to see a doctor in order to declare that you are injured. Hurdle number two, when you are at court, the definition of injury that the court will apply has now been narrowed down to essentially eliminate claims. And the proposed definition of vicarious trauma, which Troy spoke about, is a very good example of this. Now, hurdle number three, if you happen to get past those first two ones, is that then, in order to get long-term support, you have to demonstrate your whole person impairment level is so severe that as of today, only 27 out of the more than 10,000 workers in the scheme would be eligible for it. Only 27. Let's be clear, we all want a workers' compensation system that is sustainable. We don't want the system to collapse, and we want everyone to get support as soon as they can and recover and return to work as soon as they can. But what we know is that scheme sustainability will come from one thing: prevention. Stopping injuries happening in the first place. That's how you make the scheme sustainable. You limit the injuries rather than limiting the support you provide to the injured. Now, the current proposals we have seen today do nothing for prevention. Instead of prevention, it's all about punishment. Punishing workers by cutting access to critical supports. Well, these so-called reforms will create harm. This has been a rushed process, but it's something we cannot rush because we cannot leave people behind. Thank you.
Fantastic segue when you said doctors are out and lawyers are in. But I'd like to call to the stage Mitch Hickson, who's from ASMOF, to speak.
Awesome, thanks everyone. Let's start off with a chant. When I say what do, we say stand up, fight back. When workers' rights are under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back. What do? Stand up, fight back. I can't hear you, what do? Stand up, fight back. Fuck yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so I'm Mitch, I'm a doctor, I'm a member of ASMOF. And the Treasurer, Daniel Mookie, says that the system is broken, that it's not serving injured workers, that's rife with delays, that it doesn't prioritise prevention and early intervention. You know what? I agree. I completely agree. The system is broken. But tell me, how does slashing funding to injured workers fix that? It doesn't. Tell me, how does excluding people who have been mentally damaged by work burnout and stress fix that? It doesn't. Tell me, how does raising the required threshold of psychological injury, making it practically impossible for anyone to get the help that they need, fix that? It doesn't. And tell me, how does dragging victims of sexual abuse and workplace bullying in front of a court or tribunal, making them relive their trauma, fix that? It doesn't. When workers experience workplace injury, they should be helped, they should be supported, they shouldn't be made to relive their trauma. If they say that we need better prevention and early intervention, then why not do that? Why not make our workplaces safer? These changes won't stop workplace injuries from occurring, they'll just make it harder to get the help that we need. The nurses, doctors and paramedics unions have been very clear about what we need to make our workplaces safer, what we need to make our working conditions better. We need better staffing and we need better funding. But they refuse to listen to us, they refuse to engage. Instead, their big fix is to defund the compensation system so they can save a quick buck. Yeah, damn right, Shane. Doctors went on our first strike in almost 30 years over 1 month ago. And we went on this strike to highlight the decay in the healthcare system. And you know what? It is bad if doctors are striking, right? A system that is failing both staff and patients. And instead of listening to us in our union, they threatened and intimidated us. They spread lies in the media. Just like they did with many of your unions as well. With our union, they said that almost 500 patients weren't going to get chemotherapy as a result of this strike. Exactly, it was completely fabricated, it was completely made up. Doctors have put provisions in place to ensure patients will get the safe care that they needed during the strike. And this revealed of their priorities. Instead of using their resources and time to listen to doctors, to engage with us, find out what's the problem in the systems, instead they use it to smear us, delegitimise our strike and dehumanise doctors. And as a healthcare worker that's been working in this crumbling system, I have experienced trauma. I have been the victim of bullying, I've seen colleagues who have been bullied, and I've had colleagues who have been sexually abused as well. And we know that more than 1 in 3 nurses will be bullied at work and nearly 1 in 6 will experience physical violence at work. And doctors, nurses and paramedics have some of the highest rates of suicide of any profession in Australia. We are dying because of our work. We need help, we desperately need help. Our work is hard, it is stressful and it is deeply traumatic at times. So I find it appalling, I find it frankly disgusting that our government chooses to treat us this way. It shows that for all this speak of respecting our workers, it is just empty words. Because really, if they cared, if they actually valued us, they would address the conditions that are killing us rather than defunding so we can't get the help and support that we need. These proposed changes will only exacerbate our trauma. It will only exacerbate our psychological injury, and I do not think it is a stretch to say that these proposed changes will harm people. And the scariest aspect is they may even increase the suicide rates of workers in Australia. So, damn right, Shane. Money before lives, right? Chris Minns and Daniel Mookie and their government have shown they are more willing to gamble with our lives and our psychological well-being than they are to actually roll up their sleeves and do the work, to improve the conditions and support their workers, to engage with their unions, to construct a fair and just and a system that compensates us for the work that we do, and if we do get injured, we get the help that we need. So Chris Minns, do better. We've had enough. Enough of being attacked, enough of the smears, enough of the lies, and it's time that we stand up and fight back. Because when workers are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
What do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
What do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
Damn right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Mitch. And I think just to summarise or to understand here, Mookie needs to understand the consequences of the decisions he's about to make. The consequences to workers, the consequences to their families, the consequences to our community if he decides to go forward with these cuts.
It increases homelessness and suicide.
Yep.
Remember that. That will rise again.
And that will be on him.
Yeah.
These are political decisions about cutting costs. But we have got a couple of politicians here who would like to speak in support of our rally today. So first to the stage is Alex Greenwich. Thank you.
Good morning, friends. We'll start again. Good morning, friends. It is great to be with you here on Gadigal land this morning for this very important rally for your rights and protections. Let me start by putting a few facts on the table. Psychological injuries are real. Bullying and harassment is happening in your workplaces. And like me, like the Greens, this government got elected with a mandate to look after workers, not to remove your rights and protections. Especially the rights and protections of those who did the heavy lifting for all of us during COVID. As I look around here today, I see healthcare workers, retail workers, teachers, service professionals. You are the ones who got us through COVID, and that came with a huge personal and mental health impact on you and your colleagues. Now is not the time to make it harder for the government to look after you. Now is not the time to remove your access to mental health care because of the strength that you showed during one of the most difficult times in this state. So I am here today to let you know that the independent members of the Legislative Assembly have your back. We want to make sure that we either stop this bill or we fix this bill. And we will be meeting with the government throughout the week, and we have made it very clear throughout last week and over the weekend that we want to make sure that workers in this state have access to justice, have access to mental health care, and that we are preventing bullying and harassment in workplaces, not limiting people's access to justice. So I'm committed to work with you to stop this bill or to fix this bill. Thank you.
Fine. Thank you, Alex. I now call to the stage Abigail Boyd. Thank you.
How's that? Oh, there we go. Hey everyone. It is awesome to be here with you on Gadigal land. It is a little bit cold, but you have come out as you should to show your support for injured workers and to fight against what can only be described as just the most shocking, extraordinary bill I ever thought that Daniel Mookie would put forward I wanted to thank the Injured Workers Campaign Network and Annette, and I think I just wanted to reflect on the numbers of injured workers that have come to my office asking for help in navigating what is a pretty shitty system. We have a lot of people who are helped by the workers' compensation system in New South Wales, that is true, but we also have a lot who are injured by the workers' compensation system in New South Wales, and it's many of them that my office helps. And in those multitudes of people, when they tell me their stories, and they tell me, particularly with psychological injury, where they have these claims managers coming and watching their every move, trying to prove that they're not really sick. The amount of claims, psychological claims, that don't make it through because claims managers say, no, you're not really injured, it's all made up. And when they go to court, 92% of those are proven to be proper injuries deserving of support. We have injured workers who have come to inquiries over the last however many years, multiple years, lots of experts. We've had everybody from the unions to lawyers to doctors to psychiatrists to everybody you can think of coming and telling us what we need to do to reform the workers' compensation system to make it safe for people with psychological injuries. Do you think that the government's current proposals have adopted any of those recommendations? They have taken that expertise, they've used it and milked it while they were in opposition to claim that the coalition wasn't doing their job well, and then when they get into government, they throw their hands up and say, oh, actually, it's all a bit too hard, so we're just going to pretend psychological injury doesn't exist. Now, when I signed this pledge during the election, I did that after reading it, after understanding it, after committing myself absolutely and wholly to what was in it. And my colleagues did the same thing. Now, Jenny Leong is here, member of Newtown. Every single one of my colleagues, Kobe Shetty, member for Balmain, every one of us signed this knowing what it meant and knowing that it meant it was a promise to every single one of you that we would fight for a better workers' compensation system, not one that turns its backs on injured workers. The bill, you've heard all about it, but I want to bring one particular bit of it. When we talk about fixing this bill, there is scope to fix small bits of it, sure, but there are some glaring errors in this bill that cannot be fixed. And the one that I want to draw your attention to is that 30% whole person impairment. I have met people who were suicidal and only got to around 20%. I met someone who was gravely psychologically ill who was only on 18%. The idea that we would cut people off unless they could meet 31%, when we know that at least 59 people have committed suicide while on workers' compensation in New South Wales in the last 5 years alone, at least. If these reforms go through, people will suicide. It is that simple. So you cannot back down. You cannot let them push through a bill that takes that whole person impairment higher than it already is, because psychological injury is real injury and we're talking about people's lives. And I'll just finish on this. The finances, the way they're spinning the problems with iCare, it's bullshit. Anyone who knows anything about numbers, if you actually properly assess what's going on, we have had an increase in injuries, that's true, but 80% of them are physical. 80% of the increase in injuries going into workers' comp are physical. Do we turn our backs on people who have injured legs next time? Do we turn our backs on people who have injured spines because that's a bit too hard? They've picked psychological injury because they know they can use a culture war, they can use stigma, they can try and push this through because they think that people don't think psychological injury is real. Well, I'm telling you, the world doesn't believe that. The numbers are bullshit. Stand up against this bill. The Greens have your back. Thank you.
Thank you, Abigail. I'd now like to call to the stage Mark Morey, Secretary of Unions, New South Wales.
Thanks very much. How about a big round of applause for our speakers this morning? Let's get all those flags up in the air. Let's send a message to Mookie. Shame, Mookie, shame. 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 This week, they are going to try and put this bill through. And our commitment as a movement is it will sit as a millstone around Mookie's neck for the rest of the time he's in Parliament. Shame on him. So many of these people in opposition, happy to come to the meetings, happy to sign the pledges, but then they get into Parliament, except for the couple that are here with us today. There's something in the polish they use on that leather that goes up their bums and rots their brains. Because they forget the workers. They think we're the line of least resistance. Too hard to take on business. Oh, those doctors, even though we had a doctor today, and those lawyers. That's where the rorts are, in the legal avenues in this system. Everyone agrees the system is broken. Everyone agrees it needs to be fixed, but cutting injured workers off is the most disgraceful way to fix anything, especially the workers' comp system that was set up to look after injured workers. We've got to open the streets, but thanks to everyone who came here today, really appreciate it. We'll give a shout out to the CFMEU, it's good to see you. I know you got your troubles, but thanks for coming today. We're still a union movement. And thank you to everyone here. One last time, shame, Mookie, shame. 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 Thank you very much.
Okay, we're doing it. Ready? I can't hear you. Shame, Mookie, shame. 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 Okay, you've got one thing that I need to ask of you today. Again, going back to, we are here today for the workers who can't be here. For the workers who this government thinks are invisible. But we know that they deserve a voice, they need to be heard, and this needs to be changed. So this week, I want you to get in contact with your local MP. Let them know why you were here today. Get in contact with your local radio station. Let them know what this government plans to do. We need to change this week, and it's through your pressure that we can do this. So we stand united. We are going to fight